Hey y'all, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Taya and this is Taya's Turning Pages. Hey y'all, voiceover me popping in here. I just wanted to quickly clarify a few things as well as explain the purpose of this video. So as you can tell by the title, this video is going to be me giving you book recommendations that have the Real Housewives trope in it. And I just wanted to clarify and say that even though these stories have Real Housewives-esque drama included in them, that does not mean that these books are exclusively about Real Housewives drama or following friend groups that have that drama. That is an integral part of the story, but it is not the entire story, especially because these are all thrillers. So as you can imagine, there are going to be murder mystery plots that are pretty much taking center stage when it comes to these stories. I just wanted to give you recommendations that had this trope and that gave you the same feelings and the same vibes as if you're watching a Real Housewives episode. So that's essentially what this video is about. I hope you enjoy. Today's video is going to be all about Real Housewives drama, okay? But in book form. I'm really excited to film this video because I love Real Housewives and I just love the drama and the chaos that ensues from those types of shows. My personal favorite is Real Housewives of Potomac.
So you were on the hater list. And
hating on this?
I'm the one that's walking down the aisle again. When is your wedding?
When's yours?
It will be soon. In a protected environment where loved ones can come together and wish each other well in a real wedding, in a real relationship.
You got the theatrics, boo. You got them. Here they are. 1, 2, 3, boom.
I know there's probably going to be some Bravo obsessed people in my comments.
Real Housewives of Potomac, girl, that's not even top 2.
I'm not saying that you're not justified in feeling that way. I personally prefer Real Housewives of Potomac. I will say that this past season pissed me off so badly. There were so many things going on, especially as it pertains to colorism, that we're just not going to get into, okay? We're not going to get into it, but just know that this past season really pissed me off. But I am looking forward to the new season that is approaching because there's already some drama happening behind the scenes and while the women were filming, and I just can't wait to see it all unfold. Those of you who are curious, my favorites from Potomac are Karen, Big Karen. Nobody's seeing the Grand Dame. I am one of her La Dames. I also like Wendy, but for the most part, Karen is like my main go-to gal when it comes to Potomac. I don't watch really any of the other Housewives shows. I dipped and dabbled into Real Housewives of New York as well as Real Housewives of Beverly Hills and Salt Lake City, but I just really couldn't get into them the way that I got into Potomac for some strange reason. I definitely plan on checking out Real Housewives of Miami because everyone talks about how great that show is and how it is exceeding some of the already established Real Housewives. Now when it comes to Real Housewives of Atlanta, I unfortunately missed the wave for that. I was not around for its heyday when Nene was still on there. I do of course know a lot of the memes and a lot of the iconic moments that came out of the show. I have watched some episodes from time to time, out of order of course, but I just never really did my due diligence and went all the way back to season 1, episode 1 and tried to watch the show and get into it. I don't even know if it's worth it at this point now. I know a lot of Real Housewives of Atlanta fans don't feel as though the show is what it used to be just because so many cast members have left, especially Nene. It is what it is, but like I said, my favorite is Potomac and I'm standing by it. I'm sticking beside her. This video is essentially just going to be me recommending books to you that follow the Real Housewives trope when it comes to a big group of women with different personalities and who are fake nice. I know a lot of people don't really like these types of books or this type of drama in their books, and I totally understand that, but this is one of my favorite types of books to read, especially when it comes to thrillers. I just feel like it makes it more entertaining, more funny, and just more juicy, honestly. That's why I wanted to film this video today, just to put it out there so that way any of my other fellow Housewives fans can pick up some of these books and get the same feels that they get when they watch the actual show, no matter which one is your favorite. As y'all can see, I'm a little dolled up for this video. I had to treat this as if this was a Real Housewives confessional. Also, I am going to include a book that I have on my TBR that fits this trope. Of course, I just haven't read it yet, but I definitely plan on picking it up soon and seeing if I like it. Either way, even if I don't, I still wanted to include it in this video because there might be somebody out there that does like this book. So with all of that out of the way, let's jump into the recs. So the first book that I have here, I feel like is a quintessential Real Housewives parallel. There is just so much drama, chaos, snarky, bitchy behavior that ensues in this book, and it just really reminded me of an episode of Real Housewives. So the book that I'm referring to is One of Us is Dead by Geneva Rose. And you know how much I talk about this author because I am truly her target demo when it comes to these types of books. Geneva Rose and her books are not for everyone, especially because a lot of them are more popcorn thrillers and can be a little bit campy and absurd, but that's why I love them. So this one is no exception, but like I said, this one definitely follows the Real Housewives trope to a T. So I'm actually just going to read the synopsis for this book because there's so much going on with this plot, and because it's a thriller, I obviously don't want to spoil anything for you, but right here in the flap it says, opulence, sex, betrayal. Sometimes friendship can be deadly. Meet the women of Buckhead, a place of expensive cars, huge houses, and competitive friendships. Shannon was once the queen bee of Buckhead, but she's been unceremoniously dumped by Bryce, her politician husband. When Bryce replaces her with a much younger woman, Shannon sets out to take revenge. Crystal has stepped into Shannon's old shoes. A young, innocent Texan girl, she simply has no idea what she's up against. Olivia has waited years to take Shannon's crown as the unofficial queen of Buckhead. Finally, her moment has come, but to take her rightful place, she will need to use every backstabbing, manipulative, underhand trick in the book. Jenny owns Glow, the most exclusive salon in town. Jenny knows all her clients' secrets and darkest desires, but will she ever tell? That was so Gossip Girl coded. Who amongst these women will be clever enough to survive Buckhead, and who will wind up dead? They say that friendships can be complex, but no one said it could ever be this deadly. Every time I read that synopsis, I get chills because I remember exactly how this book played out, and thinking back to how it played out in comparison to the synopsis, 10 out of 10. 10, 10, 10 across the board. And going back to my earlier point, like I said, the writing in here is so snarky, funny, and frothy, and delicious. And I just feel like those are some of the ingredients that goes into making a great episode of Real Housewives. These women were something else, especially Olivia. Now, I'm obviously not going to get into who I liked and who I didn't like, just because I don't want to spoil anything, because a lot of these characters' personalities really do play an integral part of this story and of this plot. And I just had a really great time when I read this book. I genuinely laughed out loud at some of the chapters and just some of the dialogue that they were made to say. There were so many moments where the women would get smart with each other and they would have the funniest and most heinous comebacks and quick reads and drags that, again, is very reminiscent of Real Housewives. There were some women in here that I feel like had the same type of mouth as Candace from Real Housewives of Potomac. If you know, you know. Candace is one of those women where if you try to go low, she will go to hell when it comes to reading you for filth. And I just feel like there were so many women in here that had the same type of spark and the same type of just bite that Candace had. I really enjoyed being able to make those parallels from this to my favorite show out of the franchise, but I definitely recommend giving this book a read if you are looking for quintessential Real Housewives drama, fake friends, affairs, opulence, wealth, and a dash of murder. Also, Geneva Rose is pretty well known for her crazy twist in her stories, and this one is no exception. I did not expect it to end the way that it did. I was taken aback. But I've said this before about her books and her writing. She has a very ominous and sinister way of writing her books to the point where they do teeter that line of horror and thriller. I feel like Geneva Rose really goes there, and she can get really dark with her thrillers, and I feel like this one definitely showed that, especially for something as campy and silly as a bunch of rich women talking shit about each other and just hating on each other day in and day out. The next book that I have is for all my moms out here, but of course anybody can read it. But the book that I'm referring to is The Mother Next Door by Tara Liskowski. I actually read this book when I participated in the first year of Haley Me, hosted by Haley Hughes here on Booktube. I'm sure you guys already know who Haley is, but I will leave her channel link down below. But I actually got this recommendation from her because she decided to read this during Haley Me. And I have similar reading taste when it comes to thrillers to Haley, so I wanted to pick this up and give this a try, and I'm so happy that I did because this was so much fun. This story actually follows a group of women who are also moms, but they do reside in this area known as Ivy Hill, and it's 5 of them. So they are known as the Ivy Five. And these women are exactly what you think they are. They are very rich, they are very beautiful. They're essentially the PTA moms, so they do the bake sales, they host the cool and fun events for the kids. And so because of that, they do host this annual Halloween block party. It's one of those events where even though it's a block party, you want to be there and you want to be seen. And even better if you're seen and acknowledged by the Ivy Five. And so while these women are in the midst of planning their annual Halloween block party, they are met with threats and just really scary, creepy things leading up to the party. There was something tragic that happened in the past that involved all 5 of these women. And of course, that shared experience bonds them. They're keeping a lot of secrets. They don't want this particular one to get out, because if it does, it will destroy them and their reputation and their families. And so you pretty much follow these women throughout this story of them trying to not get caught up with their past, as well as just trying to actually make it to the annual Halloween block party. And the story takes off from there. So I feel like that is the best way that I can describe it, because I just feel like this is one of those books that you should just jump into and not know too much about and just give it a read and be there for the ride. ride. I feel like that's the case for all of these types of books, is that you're really here for the ride, not so much the destination. And that's how I feel when I watch Real Housewives. I feel like I'm really just here for the ride and not the actual conclusion or anything of the sort. But I do feel like this is an interesting and different take on the Real Housewives trope, specifically because all of these women are mothers. And so you're trying to see them balance not only motherhood and trying to be the perfect mother and the nicest mother, but at the same time, you're met with that juxtaposition of them harboring this very dangerous secret. So it's just really cool to be able to see the back and forth and how some women are better at managing it than others and how some women just completely spiral. So I just really liked all of those themes and messages throughout this story. This is definitely one of those books that has a huge emphasis on motherhood and just what it means to be a mother. So if that is something that you look for in your books, then I definitely recommend giving this a read. But either way, I just feel like this book is really fun. I also really like the fact that this book reminds me not only of Real Housewives, but it also reminds me of Desperate Housewives. I actually started watching that show for the first time, so obsessed, and I've been binging it ever since. I'm only on season 2, but I'm making my way through it and I'm living. I can't believe it's taken me this long to watch Desperate Housewives, but we're here, we showed up, we pulled up, and we're excited. But this book definitely reminds me of that show, just the town names and the suburbia of it all. These women reside in a place known as Ivy Drive. Then in Desperate Housewives, the women reside in a place known as Wisteria Lane. And I just like that. I really like those parallels. It has all of the drama that you could think of, but of course there is a mystery murder plot happening within this book. And I just really feel like it adds a certain edge to the book, and it's perfect for the Halloween season. I did read this during the month of October, and I felt all of the fall and spooky feels, and I really liked how atmospheric this book was. The ambiance is ambiancing. And then the last book that I have here that I want to recommend is a controversial one for sure, but I loved it. It's one of my favorites, and I'm gonna stand beside it. I don't care. 10 toes down when it comes to this book. But the book that I'm referring to is An Honest Lie by Taryn Fisher. So this is one of those books that you either loved it or you hate it. There really is no in between. Most people hated this book, and I just don't understand why, because I had a great time reading this, and I still think about this book to this day. I haven't picked up a book by Taryn Fisher since this, and I really need to get on that, but this is truly one of my favorite thrillers, and she did her big one with this. I don't know what to tell y'all. Like, I don't know. But this one is very reminiscent of Real Housewives drama. I would say besides One of Us is Dead, this one is very accurate with just how some of the women are frenemies and fake nice and clearly don't have each other's best interests at heart. And I will just forewarn you and say that this book is very intense, it's very heavy, so please make sure you look up trigger warnings for all of these books, but especially An Honest Lie, because there are mentions and themes of child abuse. So just make sure, like I said, you look up the triggers. So the plot for this book is a bit convoluted, so I'm going to try my best to give you guys my own synopsis. This book actually follows our female MC named Lorraine, aka Rainey, and Rainey had a really rough childhood. I'm not going to get into exactly what she went through because it plays a huge part of the story, and I feel like it might spoil it, so we're gonna be tight-lipped about it. But Rainey had a really rough childhood, and it shapes her into the character that we come to know in this book. So fast forward, Rainey is an adult now, and she ends up getting into this relationship with this guy who is very friendly, very personable, and very outgoing, and he has a large group of friends. But he asks Rainey, can she move in with him? Rainey is hesitant at first because she really likes her own space and really likes where she lives, but she really wants to be serious about this relationship. So she decides to move in with her boyfriend. He does live in this place where he has a big group of friends, and so Rainey is quickly ushered into this group of friends, and more specifically, she becomes friends with the wives of her boyfriend's male friends. And so Rainey starts to realize very quickly that these women are not her cup of tea. If it wasn't for her boyfriend, she probably wouldn't even be friends with them or in the same room as them. She started to get a glimpse into the friend group and the dynamic, and how some women are closer than others, and how other women just act like they like the other women just to keep the peace, essentially. But there's still a lot of shit talking and backstabbing that's going on throughout this story. Anyways, the women decide to take a girls trip to Las Vegas. Rainey is not happy about this because she did grow up in Las Vegas, and so obviously she associates that place with a lot of bad memories. She's really hesitant on going, but she ultimately decides to go, and once she gets there, shit starts hitting the fan because her past starts to catch up to her, and the story takes off from there. I don't recommend reading the synopsis for this book, at least not in full, because I feel like there is a spoiler on here. That's why I wanted to give you guys my own synopsis of this book, but that is essentially what the book is about and what is going on. This is another hit that stuck like grits for me because the women in this book were so funny. I was actually cracking up at just how unhinged and insane some of these women were towards each other, especially when it comes to going out of the state or going out of the country and you're not super familiar with your surroundings or anything like that. I just thought the way that some of these women acted was just ridiculous, and honestly it reminded me of the Real Housewives girls trip. So if you like that special, then you definitely definitely should pick up this book because it's giving the same vibe. But of course, there is an underlying sinister and darkness to this book. Besides that, their friendship and the dynamic with these women was camp. I really loved reading about Rainy's true thoughts on these women and this girl's trip, and just exactly how she was feeling being in this group that she felt like was fake, you know? I will say that this book is a little bit more slow paced, so it does take a minute for the action to pick up, so just keep that in mind. But I would say that this book is more character driven than plot driven. If you are a character driven girly, then I definitely recommend giving this a try, because I became very invested in Rainy and also just very invested in these women and their drama. I really enjoyed this book. I was clearly the target audience for this. I feel like this really satisfied my Real Housewives craving when I read this at the time. And the last book that I wanted to put on your guys' radar is a book that I have not read yet, but it's on my TBR, and I'm hoping to get it and read it very soon, especially because summer is about to be over and this takes place on a tropical island, so I really need to get my shit together and read this. But the book that I'm referring to is She Started It by Sean Gilbert. So right here the synopsis says, the party of a lifetime is nothing like what they expected. Annabelle, Esther, Tanya, and Chloe are best friends, or were, as children. Despite drifting apart in adulthood, shared secrets have kept them bonded for better or worse, even as their childhood dreams haven't quite turned out as they'd hoped. Then one day, they receive a wholly unexpected, but not entirely unwelcome, invite from another old friend. Poppy Greer has invited them all to her extravagant bachelorette party, a first-class plane ticket to 3 days of white sand, cocktails, and relaxation on a luxe private island in the Bahamas. None of them has spoken to Poppy in years, but Poppy's IG pics show that the girl they used to consider the weakest link in the group has definitely made good and made money. Curiosity gets the better of them. Besides, who can turn down a posh, all-expenses-paid vacation on a Caribbean island? The first-class flight and the island's accommodations are just as opulent as expected, even if the scenic island proves more remote than they anticipated. Quite remote, in fact, with no self-service and no other guest. The women quickly discover they've underestimated Poppy and each other. As their darkest secrets are revealed, the tropical adventure morphs into a terrifying nightmare. This is also a vacation from hell book, and I'm here for those too. But of course, I really wanted to look at this from the perspective of Real Housewives. I just know that this is going to fall into that category too. So that's why I wanted to include it in this video, because I just feel like this is going to be so good, so entertaining, so fast-paced, and so gripping. I'm probably going to be in the minority and be a big fan of this. Now, I am on Goodreads, and I see that this book is rated a 3.62, which isn't the highest and it isn't the lowest, but it's definitely not as high as I thought it would be. So that does make me a little nervous, but at the same time, and like I said earlier, these types of books are not for everybody. A lot of people really like their thrillers to be more serious, more dark, and have commentary involved, and I totally understand that. I'm the same way. I love when thrillers go that route, but I also love to have a little fun with my thrillers too. The campier, the better. I'm not gonna lie to y'all, I love a spectacle. I love a show, which is why I love reality TV so much, because it's just fun. It's escapism, and even though I don't want that in my real life, I don't mind watching it play out on TV. So there's that. Alright y'all, and those are all of the books that I have to share with you for today's video. I know it wasn't a lot, but I feel like it's kind of hard to find books that truly fit this mold and fall into this category, and you can make an argument for it. If you have any other books that fit this Real Housewives trope, then definitely leave them down in the comments below, because I would love to check them out. But as of right now, these are the only ones that I personally have and that I have personally read that fit this trope. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Definitely make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps me my channel out. And lastly, please make sure you follow me on Bookstagram as well as Storygraph. I'll leave all of that information linked down below, as well as at the end of the video like I always do. I will see you guys in my next video.